Well, hello there, and thank you very much for clicking on this video today. This is a news story which has kind of flown under the radar a little bit, um, but it could be very important to you and for the people of the UK. So, what you may not know is that the government signed a UK-US trade deal on pharmaceuticals, and as part of that deal, the independence of an organisation called NICE is going to be stripped away. Now, what does an organisation called NICE do? Well, to put it simply, NICE is an organisation that regulates the cost of buying drugs for the NHS, and it's an independent organisation free from government control, but that's shortly going to change. So this is an article that is coming from the Canary. I'll link the article itself in the comment. So, let's start at the beginning. So, a patient-led campaign group called Just Treatment and social justice organisation Global Justice Now have written to the UK government setting out why they believe it has acted unlawfully in pushing through changes to the NHS drug price control frameworks. It's the first stage of a legal challenge to a central pillar of the US-UK trade deal on pharmaceuticals. So, a statutory instrument, which passed into law in April, gives ministers direct control over the key cost-effectiveness threshold that NICE uses to determine which medicines are routinely available on the NHS. So I'll continue. So what they go on to say is that the government needs to change. The government needed this change to deliver on its promise it made to Donald Trump under the December 2025 trade deal on pharmaceuticals, and it's part of a package of changes that commits the UK to increasing NHS spending dramatically on patented medicines over the next 10 years. But in the letter, which I will read out shortly, sets out why the changes are unlawful, and it asks the government to revoke the legislation or face a court battle on the changes. The claimants believe that the changes effectively end NICE's independence from political interference, leaving medicine prices subject to political lobbying by Big Pharma and the US government. The article then says that they say that this poses an existential risk to the UK's careful framework of safeguards designed to protect patients and the NHS from excessive pricing demands from the pharmaceutical industry. Changes the government has committed to under the Trump deal are estimated to cost the NHS billions of pounds by the year of 2035, and have been widely criticised by quite a lot of health experts. So, the director of Just Treatment said, "The government caved in to threats from Donald Trump and the pharmaceutical industry and signed a deal that experts say could cost the lives of over 300,000 NHS patients. That's more excess deaths than COVID. Worse still, they've refused to publish their own assessments of the damage the deal would do to the NHS, and they've used parliamentary process designed to make it extremely difficult for MPs to properly scrutinise what they are up to. We believe the process they have followed is unlawful, and we already take them to court to defend the NHS patients and our democracy." And the director of Global Justice Now said the government has tried to claim this is about improving outcomes for patients, accelerating access to medicines, but everyone knows this is a move forced by the government, by Donald Trump and Big Pharma. This is a government gambling with NHS patients' lives in a geopolitical game with Donald Trump. They risk sabotaging a carefully worked out mechanism for keeping a lid on Big Pharma's overinflated prices, and they have done so without so much as debate in Parliament. And one of the lawyers concerned says, "Our clients are deeply concerned about the impact of the UK's pharmaceutical trade deal with the US and the impact it could have on price and availability of drugs and medicines. They argue that new powers giving the Health Secretary direction over NICE in matters regarding cost effectiveness risk undermining an important and globally recognised health body that can materially impact what drugs and medicines are available on the NHS." This was submitted in a legal letter. So it's not just organisations that have spoken out against this and are trying to challenge this. Parliamentarians, to be fair, have also, or some of them anyway, have also been trying to force a public debate on these changes. But the mechanism that government has used to enact them, known as a negative statutory instrument, makes that kind of independent scrutiny incredibly difficult. However, MPs and peers from Labour, Conservatives, SNP, the Liberal Democrats, the Greens, Plaid Cymru, as well as two cross-party committees, have raised concerns. And the truth of the matter is that NICE should be independent, because if it's not, then what is to stop the government basically caving into pressure from the US government and inflating the prices? Now, if the prices are inflated, then some drugs will just not be available to people, or will be available to people but at outrageous costs. So John McDonnell MP, who has been leading parliamentary efforts to secure the scrutiny of this UK-US trade deal, has started a motion opposing legislation enacting changes to NICE, and he says, the government has ridden roughshod over the democratic process, the views of MPs and peers, and the lives of NHS patients to force through a deal with Trump that they claim is in the interests of the UK. But they won't publish anything to evidence their claims, and they won't enable time for proper parliamentary debate on this. It's extremely dangerous precedent, and I hope the government backs down or the courts re-establish the democratic principles that our parliament relies upon. The campaigners themselves set up a crowdfunder to cover the legal costs of the case, which goes to court fees and various things like that. So this is just an example of how, Donald Trump is currently fucking over his own citizens, but it's also a good example of how, if given a chance, he'll also fuck over people in the UK as well. So, there are my thoughts on that. Let me know in the comments what your opinion of this is, and thank you very much for listening to this video today.